anytime you being offended by a joke makes you want to like stop that joke from happening, you're automatically being a hypocrite because you're offended by a joke when there's another joke you're not offended by that someone else is offended by. So you're automatically a hypocrite the minute you want a joke to be taken down or you get angry and outraged. You're automatically a hypocrite. When you're doing Jewish jokes, like try to find that balance where you're not too stereotypical to the point where they're laughing at, their perception of Jews. Make them see a different perception. But don't make it so extreme that they don't know what you're talking about. Find that balance between relatability and uniqueness, which is, I guess, the advice for any joke. Anytime you say you're racist or anti-Semitic, you're really just admitting your life has not gone well at all. You're just revealing. Yeah, you're just revealing, like, especially if you're like, I'm anti-Semite, you're like, oh, well, you are doing really badly. Yeah. Like you've clearly lost your family. You've lost, like, you don't make any money. Like, it's just being racist or anti-Semitic. You're just admitting that you're a loser.
Like it'd be like at the beginning of that Game of Thrones episode, like trigger warning. If you've ever been at a wedding that turned into a massacre, you might want to turn this off.
You can't laugh at that.
You're all like comics in Cleveland?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Cool. And isn't it crazy that, I guess Cleveland did go for Trump, but isn't it crazy that Ohio is now more red than fucking Georgia?
I'm like, man, it's Cleveland, Columbus, like all the cities, all the counties where the cities are, or like the big universities are, were blue, and then everything else was red.
You've just been overpowered by like the rural areas.
But I even read an article today. One of the actually Steve Strongsville, the representative that represents that district, voted to impeach Trump.
Oh, really?
And like former Ohio State wide receivers. So people were like, that would be like if he played all but the last 2 minutes of the game for Ohio State, then went into the locker room and came out in a Michigan uniform.
And that's why we're red, because we're always analogizing like college football of all things.
Yeah. It's also just funny that like it's funny that it's for them, it's like a real betrayal, him voting to impeach, right? So for them, I guess it's a attack on the Constitution, the same way I guess it is. But it's funny that for them to analogize an attack on the Constitution, they have to bring up something with so less stakes. Like they didn't go hyperbole. They went the other way. Yeah. That's like if something that's really not a big deal at all happened. Like like usually with analogies you go bigger, not. Right. But maybe I guess that is bigger here.
In the scheme of things.
Yeah, that's true. We take it way too seriously. It's really bad.
That whole comment just reveals that at least that person thinks overturning or whatever, like impeaching Trump is an attack on democracy. They think playing for the Wolverines or whatever is or whoever it is the worse than that,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That would be like
I'm a Jew, so I just compare everything to like Nazis, but I guess in Ohio white people just compare everything to college football.
Yeah, it's Michigan.
Wolverines are Nazis.
What?
Michigan Wolverines are our Nazis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's how people understand it. Yeah. It is funny when people use weird like metaphors to understand shit. Like I remember years ago, there was I was trying to do a bit about this, but I guess it never worked. There was a documentary about getting all these kids to understand the Holocaust, and it was called Paper Clips. And for them to understand it, they gathered 6 million paper clips. And it's like, wouldn't you understand it better if you just imagine Jews getting killed? Like, why do you have to you have to use paper clips to like, as Jews, I don't get it, but gathering all the paper clips, that's a tragedy.
Oh, that puts it in perspective.
Like you have to bring it to inanimate objects.
Guess the amount of gumballs in the jar.
Yeah,
just to fully understand the nightmare of it.
Oh, no.
It helps them elicit more emotion from it when they see the paper clips.
Just thinking of all those paper clips getting gas is just terrifying.
Yeah.
all of those that mountain of paper shoes of the paper clips. I don't know. So So what's this podcast again?
Before we get to that, I do want to just make one more point about like college football and comparing.
Really
it to
forcing
Holocaust.
us to get to the
yeah. So Ohio State fans will actually, the week they play Michigan, they will cross out all the M's and like street signs, and so it's it's the equivalent of Germany like banning swastikas.
Wow.
In Columbus, Ohio. And then we refer to Michigan as that state up north, or the team up north. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. My brother went to
the stakes a little bit, man.
My brother went to Ohio State.
Okay.
I went to his graduation. George Bush spoke.
Oh,
how fun.
He was in a graduation outfit, and it looked like he was also like going through college.
Oh my God.
Too soon.
I actually offended someone. I posted a joke on Facebook, which I'm trying not to do anything on Facebook anymore because it's just all fucking old people now. Yeah. They've taken over. It used to be like kids. And then
that's
like,
what it was made for.
Yeah. And now it's literally just it's gone full circle. It's become the obituaries. It's just literally just old people posting about how their wife of 60 years died, you know? But I posted a video. I shouldn't have, because it's just people like, it's not, but it was a video I'd done on a show in the snow. And I was just talking about how it kind of like the scene looked a lot like Schindler's List, because there was like barbed wire on the wall, and there was like trains constantly going, and it was like snowy. And I was just like, as a Jew, I'm really triggered. You know, you got this Auschwitz barbed wire, and then I was just like, I feel like I'm on the set of Schindler's List right now. And then in the comments, someone goes, "This is disgusting. How did Facebook? It's a wonder that Facebook let this filth." Filth get through, which I'm
Jesus.
like, you stupid. I mean, you fucking don't you realize Facebook led an entire misinformation campaign that almost destroyed democracy through. So like, A, like what you're surprised that, first of all, it's not offensive, but B, like, why would you be surprised Facebook lets the worst shit ever through, you know?
Yeah.
And also, but just talking about offensiveness, before I went on stage, when I did that bit, I knew it was my first line I was going to talk about. So I specifically introduced it by saying, as a Jew, I'm triggered, you know, to make it look like I'm like, but to me, I don't know if we're talking about offensive humor. To me, that was a way to be like, I don't want to just go on stage and be like, this is like Schindler's List, because then you don't even know I'm Jewish. So like coming in from a place of like, no, I feel triggered. So it's like, you try to do things to soften the blow, and some old twat is still offended, you know, but whatever. It's fair.
Oh, yeah. You could do a joke about, you know, a close family member passing away, and then someone's like, that's not okay. And it's like, dude, it's my.
Yeah, I know. It's like suicide. It's like people get offended when you make fun of suicide, but I mean, as an you're just not very philosophical, because suicide is something it's for all of us. I mean, it's an option we all have, you know what I mean? Not to get.
It's on the table.
It's on the table. So it's like, it's for us. It's no different than making a joke about people getting really old. We're going to get old, so it's a joke for us. So suicide is a joke we can make because it's about us. It's about everyone. It's the existential question. So if you're offended by someone making a joke about suicide, you're just a shallow person who has no concept of existentialism.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should cope with it in your own way, because that's not how I would cope with it.
But honestly, people can be offended. I mean, whatever. It's like, people can be not find something funny at all, but it's the problem is when you like complain about it as if anyone gives a shit.
Yeah, you have every right to be offended, but don't ruin it for everyone else. Like, other people might enjoy that.
Well, now they have triggers on shows. I'm trying to make up for the fact that I feel like I was moving the podcast along before, so now I'm trying to make it very digressive.
Yeah,
because I feel kind of bad, because I was like, all right, let's get to the thing, but then
we go with the flow. Like most.
Yeah, you're okay, man. We're not too.
I felt like shitty. I was like, all right, let's get moving. I was like, oh fuck.
Lately we haven't even introduced done the opening bit until the very end.
Oh, okay,
we're not going to interrupt the flow of conversation to be like, hold on. Welcome to You Can't Laugh at That, the podcast where we take topics you can't laugh at. We find ways to laugh at them in the never-ending quest to prove that anything can be funny. You know, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Well, you really had that.
It's very tangential.
Memorized.
Yeah.
Well, now they have trigger warnings on shows. Have you seen this shit? Like, I was watching The Morning Show, which is a good show about sexual harassment. And it started having trigger warnings before each episode. And one of them was a trigger warning because there was sexual harassment in the episode, which is crazy because the whole show is about sexual harassment. But then another one was a trigger warning for like self-harm with drugs. And it totally ruined the show because like someone ODs and you figure it out early because they had the trigger warning, you know? And so it's like, these trigger warnings are they're ruining like what's going to happen. You know, it's a spoiler warning. I'm triggered by the spoiler. You know what I mean? But it also, they do it on Mad Men. They went back and on Mad Men, there's an episode where John Slattery's in blackface and they do a trigger warning, which is like no one's condoning him being in fucking blackface. It's like showing what they did. That's just how behavior was in the 60s. But when you do a trigger warning, I think the problem with that on shows is that it's perpetuating the idea that being triggered is always bad, which part of being triggered is like, yeah, you need to grow psychologically. Like this trigger is showing that there's things you can't face. Let's go to therapy and let's try to deal with it. But when you start saying, don't watch this, you might get triggered. It's like, you're basically saying, don't grow. Run away from your problems. Run.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck this trigger warning bullshit. Like life is a goddamn trigger. like that's just existence. And it's like, if you put a trigger warning on shit on shows, it's like, there's no end to that. You're going to just put it, they do it in The Queen for just showing, I think like anorexia. It's like, give me a fucking break. You can't, it's like, you can't create this. You're creating this world where like people are trying to avoid everything that makes them uncomfortable. And to the point where people start thinking being uncomfortable is bad when that's actually dealing with uncomfortability is part of life.
How do you feel about putting a trigger warning in front of something that was made like something Disney made that was clearly anti-Semitic, rather than just taking it down?
Well, I get
putting
that.
A trigger warning in front of it.
I mean, I get that because that's like things that are actually like, well, I don't know. You mean like if they like you mean like airing? You mean the old Disney thing where like the black lacy guys and shit or whatever that was?
Yeah, or what was it? The crows? Or
the crows?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. Definitely get that way more. What I don't get is when it's something that's not actually racist or anti-Semitic. It's just showing something from life.
Right.
That I'm like, well, that's just life. Like, I'm sorry. You just like, you can't hide everything, but I get it when it's something like really like, like anti-Semitic or racist. I get wanting to show that you don't condone it anymore. You know,
I feel like if it's not going to, I mean, people like trigger literally means like triggering like a panic attack from PTSD, I guess you could say. If it doesn't reach that threshold, I don't think there's absolutely no reason for a trigger warning. But it's like people need to go to therapy, and it sucks. I mean, it's not like it's all on them to have to go and seek therapy so that they can deal with these sorts of things out in the real world. But it's like, I don't know, but you get where I'm going with that, right?
Yeah, what you're getting, and yes, like if it causes a panic attack, that's another thing where it's like, well, you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
If seeing someone do drugs in a movie causes a panic attack because of your past experience with your father doing drugs or whatever, or your own drug experience, like you can't, I don't know, just having a trigger warning on everything just suggests like, it just creates this idea where you should run away from anything that might cause you a panic attack. But I get panic attacks all the time. You can't control it. You can't predict it. And, you know, I'm not talking if there's like a graphic rape scene or something like that, obviously you can put a note on it, but getting into shit where it's just like, where it's like, where you're like, what is, you know, just showing drug use. It's like, come on, we're coddling everybody.
It's frivolous. Yeah.
To an extreme degree.
These trigger warnings have ruined drugs for me.
Yeah.
Trigger warnings trigger me because I am conservative.
Yeah. I'm triggered by how fucking
I'm not conservative.
We've all become.
Yeah. Sad I have to say that. I'm like, please don't judge me.
You know, if we start putting the trigger warnings in front of these, like, I mean, traumatic for some people things, like how far is it gonna go? You know,
well, everything's traumatic for someone,
right? Exactly.
Yeah, and you're gonna miss some, and then it's just gonna be like, you know, it's the same thing with a joke. Anytime you being offended by a joke makes you want to like stop that joke from happening, you're automatically being a hypocrite because you're offended by a joke when there's another joke you're not offended by that someone else is offended by. So you're automatically a hypocrite the minute you want a joke to be taken down or you get angry and outraged. You're automatically a hypocrite.
Also, you're missing the nuance in the joke. Like, you're missing this comic could be saying something that does agree with you, but you've been triggered by something that they said already before they're able to make the point. Or like, I think it softens. I mean, like you said, it softens the blow. Like if there's a trigger warning at the beginning of an episode, like you said with the OD situation where the character overdoses, like that
spoils it.
Yeah, it spoils it. So that's like saying, hey, this joke is going to have, a comment on bulimia in it or something. And
it's like trigger warning. This guy ends up being the murderer at the end. It's just like ruins the fucking twist. Because in the morning show, it shows this woman at the end, like she's unraveling and it shows her like walking in slow motion through the fog. And right then you're like, oh, it's going to cut to her ODing. But before you wouldn't know that, you're like, who knows what's going to happen? You know what I mean? So you end up processing that and it ends up fucking up the story.
Right. It'd be like at the beginning of that Game of Thrones episode, like trigger warning. If you've ever been at a wedding that turned into a massacre, you might want to turn this off.
Trigger warning. Yeah.
It softens the blow. A pregnant
woman gets stabbed abruptly at a wedding, and then everyone else die.
Turn this off.
No, to be fair, that would be triggering, justifiably triggering if that happened. If you were at a wedding where people got murdered, and then you saw the red wedding, you would be triggered. But I guess you just have to assume that hasn't happened to most people.
Right. And that goes into like the intent. Having a trigger warning almost takes away from that, because like humans, we have a habit of judging ourselves based off of our intent. Like if we do something messed up, we try to make it seem logical to ourselves, so it makes sense to us. We justify it. Whereas if somebody else does the same thing, we judge their action versus the intent. So if somebody uses a word as part of a joke to make a point that word is bad, like they're not thinking about the intent of the comic. They're thinking about, this person said a word that I don't like, and that's all I'm getting out of this whole thing. Right.
Or they like deliberately misinterpret the intent. Like the intent is, so many people are offended by a joke. Like I remember this comic when there was a fly on Mike Pence's face. She tweeted something like, that's his only black friend, And it's a funny joke. And then everyone got mad at her. They're tweeting her like comparing flies to black people. And it's like,
what?
It's like, she wasn't doing that. That wasn't the point. I mean, you're deliberately misinterpreting the joke, like deliberately. It's like, just take a step back and realize that is clearly not her intent. But that's like, everything needs a balance. And, you can't be too extreme either way. You know what I mean? And one of the extremities of liberalism is they think a liberal concept a lot of times is even if it wasn't your intention with the art, if some people take it the wrong way, that's a fault of the artist. And that's a fallacy, and it's not true. Like, you can't. Saddam Hussein's favorite movie was The Godfather. Clearly he missed some of the themes they were going for, but that it's not a fault of The Godfather. I mean, he clearly watched it and went, yeah, he should have killed Fredo. He did the right thing. You know what I mean? You got to preserve your empire. But like, you can't always be concerned about people taking it the wrong way. If that's not your intent, then you can't judge them by that. But liberalism taken too far will, go that way. And unfortunately, the people who are too overly like precious about shit, like too overly politically correct, unfortunately, the people they're fighting with are people so far on the right. You're like, well, those people are crazy too. That's not what I'm saying. It's always some guy on the right who's like, fuck the politically correct. I should wear blackface and kick a baby in the pussy. And it's like, well, no, that's too much. Like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. This opens the door for massive overcorrections.
Yes. Well, we're all just, this whole existence is we're just caught in this pendulum of overcorrections, and we seem to never get out of it. You know what I mean? It's like this country seems to never realize like the truest thing is what Aristotle said, the golden mean. Both extremes are evil. Virtue is somewhere in the middle. And like this country's caught in this vicious cycle where we like if it's so hard to realize that communism is bad and completely unmitigated capitalism, if it's so fucking hard to realize that, like we just like constantly bounce back and forth between the two, like just like, you know, get some, you know, and it's the same thing with jokes. It's like, yes, it's good that we're being more sensitive now. It's great that we're being more sensitive. But like, where do we take this too far? Do we get so sensitive and so coddling that it's actually not good for us? That it's not good for our psychological development.
Right. Your brain, you know, we need some calluses.
Yeah. I mean, I deal with anxiety all the time. And a big part of meditation is learning to be uncomfortable with, learning to sit with anxiety. Mm-hmm. Running away from a movie because there's a trigger warning is not sitting with the anxiety. Right. It's not learning to overcome it. It's like running away from it. And we perpetuate those notions when we do that.
That's no way to live.
Yeah.
Right. That's like getting on stage your first time and the jokes that you thought were great don't land. You don't run away from comedy.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If you really care about it, you figure out what it takes.
Yeah, it's like if the Wolverines, right? The Ohio State. I don't know. Trying to get it so your fucking moron listeners understand. You know.
No.
Hey, I'm offended.
I love the Buckeyes. We're so married to the beliefs that we have that they're right and they're just and there's nothing wrong with them. And that's where the problem lies. It's like this. You have to account for human error.
Yeah.
You have to account for basic human things like greed and self-preservation and things like that. Like the system itself is very it's objective. I mean, it's like it is what we make it to be.
The government controlling everything is bad, and fucking everything being privatized is also really bad.
Right.
As we see with Texas now, where their whole fucking grid broke down because they just like all these companies just try to offer the cheapest services and cut corners, and now the whole thing is completely, you know, broken down, you know. But like not that the government running it would have done that much better, I don't know. But
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. But
right.
I think with jokes it's like, yeah, you shouldn't, you know, there's also just more important things like, you know, to like deal with. I think Mark Norman said it something like when he sees people offended by jokes, he's like jealous because they're like, he's so dead inside. It's like, it'll be amazing. And that is how I feel like comics are just kind of dead inside. So it's like, yeah, we make jokes about shit. And other people just, I guess,
still definitely dead inside.
Yeah. Other people still care about, you know. I think anytime that people are offended by something that's an attempt at a joke, it's okay to not laugh because it's comfortable. But anytime you like start posting about it and all that shit, then it's a little like, you're kind of demanding that joke to not be in there. You want a trigger warning. You want it to be removed, you know? There is a fascist impulse people have where the things they don't like, they want removed from society. Mm-hmm. And that is what a dictator wants. A dictator, you know, Hitler was made uncomfortable by the Jews. So he removed them, you know what I mean? So it's like, so it's like, you know, you don't want to go too far where you demand, but we're all so fucking entitled now. We all think our voices matter. So we all just demand things to not be seen in front. We all think we're kings right now.
Mm-hmm. I think that emotional intelligence is a good, like having a measured reaction to things. You don't want to be too emotional, but you don't want to be insensitive either. You just have to have a nice balance.
You can't laugh at that.
Have you ever thought about starting a podcast, but you're worried about how much it's going to cost to get all the equipment that you need on top of the subscription to your podcasting host? Well, look no further. The microphone I'm currently saying this on is a Samson Q2U USB XLR microphone, and damn is it sexy. Not only is it versatile and you can use it to record from your home, but you can take it with you to the show. If you don't want to use the same mic as everyone else, you can plug it in because it's got an XLR thing. I'm not versed on the technical side of this. All I know is this microphone works. It makes my voice sound way clearer than if I were to just be talking into the mic on my computer, the one that's built in. And if you do Zoom meetings for work, you'll sound extra crisp, extra clear. So check out the show notes. The link to our product page is in the show notes. Give that a click. You'll also see the headphones I use, the same ring light that I use, as well as the links to buy the albums of each one of our guests that we've had on this show. From episode 5, Raj Suresh, all the way to this episode. You'll be able to support any of the comics that have been on the show. So head to watercoolercomedy.org/podcast, and you'll be able to find all of the equipment that we use, all of our guests' albums, and some recommended reading if you're interested in the science of using humor. So it's watercoolercomedy.org/podcast, and you'll find links to all of those products there. Thanks for listening. And now, I've always wanted to say this, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
You can't laugh at that.
To me, a religion is anything that like teaches you values, but also makes you somehow connected to something immortal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anything that kind of denies the death principle and makes you forget about it. So like Trumpism is the ultimate, like that is, so a lot of times religion, it's focused on your own immortality, or you believing in someone else who's immortal. You know what I mean? Like you believe in Jesus who came back. And Trump is the ultimate, I'm not afraid of death. I defy death. And everyone glommed onto him to feel their own immortality, to the point where that's why he didn't wear a mask. He couldn't wear a mask because he is the great defier of death. He doesn't die.
He's
he gets it. He gets it. He gets stronger. So his whole thing was a denial of death, which is the ultimate. His whole thing was a denial of reality, and death is at the corner of reality. Because what was his whole thing? We're going to stop globalism. Well, you can't stop it. We're already here. We're going to bring back coal mining jobs. Well, no, they're done. You can't do that. Like, but it's just like, it's a complete denial of death, and let's go back into the past and we'll never die. And because of that, so many people have died.
I've never heard it framed that way before. But I mean, that's the thing, is that if you resist something, the more it happens.
The denial of death leads to the ultimate amount of death. Yeah. Well, how many people die in war because they think they're going to, be in the afterlife, right. Like it allows, belief in immortality allows so many more people to die.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So Trump could never put on a mask, because he is a religion. And
right.
he could never do that. He could never look like he's afraid of death,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would shake people's perspective of
and QAnon is very much a religion. But everything's that's the thing. When you shit on religion, you also have to realize like there's a religion in everyone's life on some level. There's some attempt to attach onto an idea of immortality, whatever it is, art or anything.
I guess Q is basically just Christian extremism, because it's very anti-Semitic and all that.
Yeah, it's blood libel, like the anti-Semitic conspiracy. Yeah. Blood libel used to believe that like Jews would take the blood of Christian children and use it for matzah, and so it's just updated. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. People back then believing a crazy conspiracy, but it's just
we don't have that today.
Yeah, it's just updated where they, instead of Jew, you're just like
Hollywood,
like Hollywood
and adrenochrome.
Yeah, or globalists or pedophiles, and then and then you still have the kid there, the kids who are getting fucked. So that's Marjorie Green Taylor's. The reason she got in trouble is because she forgot to update it from Jew. She kept Jew. And she didn't get the update. You're supposed to take out the word Jew and just say globalist or Hollywood. So yeah, QAnon is an update of anti-Semitic beliefs.
Racism has been repackaged as cultural preservationalism. These fancy terms now.
You got to change. Yeah, you got to update it. You got to change the wording. You know what I mean? Racism has also been updated to, I'm not racist. You're racist for calling me racist.
Right. I love your bit about your grandfather, like
the thing about the KKK, the old people thing.
Yeah, the old people thing. I forget how you frame it. Like you frame it in a way where it's like, well, he's not from this time, or
it's like he says something to my mom is like, he's from a different time. I'm like, yeah, but the only problem is he's not. He's from right now. Yeah. I guess it's just a joke, but it is, we do kind of we do kind of sometimes give people excuses that they're not living on this earth with us.
Yeah, I mean, what it was a Gary Goldman has a bit about people like anti-Semites. And it's like, if you hate Jews, then you shouldn't be able to use the things that they've come up with. Like, you should be living with polio because a Jew came up with the polio vaccine and colored TVs and remote controls. And
of course.
Same thing with the anti-science the anti-science movement. It's like, please stop, get off your phone right now.
And if you're racist, you shouldn't be able to eat peanut butter.
Right. Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Even though apparently George Washington Carver did 300 variations of peanuts, but never got to peanut butter, really? Which I actually think makes him look bad, in my opinion, that you never get to peanut butter and all that. But anyway, I don't mean to. But yeah, so I don't know if any of that's true, by the way. But
he wasn't a chef, right? I mean, so
that's true. But
he wasn't like, I'm going to make hummus out of these peanuts.
But yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, anytime you say you're racist or anti-Semitic, you're really just admitting your life has not gone well at all. You're just revealing. Yeah, you're just revealing, like, especially if you're like, I'm anti-Semite, you're like, oh, well, you are doing really badly. Yeah. Like you've clearly lost your family. You've lost, like, you don't make any money. Like, it's just being racist or anti-Semitic is just admitting that you're a loser.
Yeah. I feel like one overarching theme with this stuff and also just politics in general is if you have good ideas, you don't have to lie to everybody. Yeah. You just have your ideas. But if you have bad ideas, you have to deceive everyone to get your agenda pushed through.
For sure.
A lot of self-deception too. These people, a lot of them are warped. They're not just evil. They're just like dumb.
Well, I mean, Putin acts like his country is a democracy. He's not on stage going, follow me and my plan of me having all the power. And you can't openly say what you are when what the thing you are is evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, even Hitler obviously was hiding some of what he was doing. But so, but what is, so you're, a lot of this show's about people getting offended by jokes.
I mean,
if jokes we're talking my stand-up, no one's really offended by those jokes, I guess.
Getting them to work and otherwise, unsavory sounding topics. I don't know. It's just getting things to work generally.
Yeah, we dive pretty deep into the concept of connection. Like, how did you connect these unlike ideas to form a joke, and how did you connect that joke with the audience? And
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we kind of dive into. Like the first few episodes, we were kind of feeling our way around, but then we had a conversation about relationships, and we kind of came to the conclusion that the most important relationship as a comic, even though you're telling like hacky relationship jokes, is you have to form a relationship with the audience. So that involves building trust. That involves doing something as simple as saying, I'm a Jew, so I'm triggered by this.
Right.
Just like little things, there are little tricks. Yeah, it's creating human connection. That's what comedy is.
One of the first lessons I learned, I feel like starting out, I had two different comics tell me advice, three different pieces of advice from comics that really just stuck with me on the road. Like before I ever moved to New York, the most important one was, I think I went on stage somewhere and I just started making fun of something, and it didn't go great. And afterwards, he's like, you should make fun of yourself first before you make fun of other people. Make fun of yourself, let them see your own worldview, and then you can make fun of other people. But they don't know who you are yet. So if you're just on stage making fun of shit and they don't know who you are, there's going to be a disconnect. And I've honestly followed that. That might not be true for everyone. Certain comics like to go up there and be a dick, and it works for them. But for me, I've always made fun of myself first on some level, or tried to, or show a little piece of my world before making fun of other things. So, get them to know your worldview, and then have them see, once they see your worldview, have them see how you see. Once they see who you are, have them see how you now see other things, So that's the most important advice, I guess. So for me, like when you're making fun of things, make fun of yourself first, and then you can go on to other shit.
That would help me because I criticize everything. That's my whole angle is, obviously a lot of comics do criticism of things, but I definitely am very geared towards heavily criticizing things.
I think it's, granted every comic just wants to see everyone else be in their own image, but I personally think, granted it can go too far. You see those comics who make fun of themselves too much. You're like, all right, you're not that ugly. Come on, move on. But like, I think there needs to be a little self-deprecation up front just before you get into other shit. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Right. And you can't have the audience feeling bad about it too.
No. Yeah.
You can't, like you said, there's extremes to everything. Going back to the political thing, you just got to find a sweet spot in the middle that's true to you.
And I felt it too, where I'm like, all right, I've made too many jokes about not getting women to come. I've reached a quota. You know what I mean? Like I've made too many jokes about coming early. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, but yeah, I always, whenever I've gone on stage and just started shitting on something, and right away I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
There's something smug about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something smug. And that's just me personally. For me to achieve some kind of likability on stage or something, I have to always make fun of myself right away on some level. I feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So if you listen to any of my stand-up, it's typically me making fun of myself first and then making fun of everyone else.
Right. I mean, your most recent album, which came out last year, you opened with introducing just up front, your name, and then being a Jew from Kentucky.
Right.
And that kind of, it's only like a 2-minute track, but you establish who you are.
Yeah.
You establish kind of that, like, there's that built-in kind of juxtaposition too, being a Jew from Kentucky.
Right.
So, and then like throughout the album, you make connections between, unlike things like all the way through, in really fun ways.
Yeah, to show a little of like, you're, the more detailed, the more specific you are, the more universal it is, right? Because we all have different specifics about our lives. I'm a Albanian who works at Target or whatever. We all have different specifics, right? But the common thing is that we all have specifics. So when you go on stage and you don't have any specifics about who you are, that's actually less universal to the audience, because they're like, well, I have specifics about my life. Why don't you have specifics about your life? So having detailed specifics about your life is universal in the sense that the algorithm is always that we all have specific details about our life.
Right.
Yeah.
You have a unique experience, sure. But if they see a little bit of themselves in that, like, that fish out of water.
Yeah.
Example.
They might not be a Jew from Kentucky, but they're something else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And that, you don't, honestly, when someone that's who you want to get. I mean, when someone's just like, that's me too, I'm from Kentucky. It's like, fuck those people. That's just a novelty. But when people can connect to like the actual thing, that matters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. What was that like growing up? Was there like a community?
Well, that being said, I feel a little cheap when I do the Jew from Kentucky jokes, a little, just because I came from Louisville, which is more of a progressive town. I mean, there's still a lot of Southern stuff in it, but we had a Democratic mayor, and it was had some of that kind of Atlanta feel. So like when I say Jew from Kentucky, I have one joke in the beginning where I feel like it kind of, it's actually just one line that makes me feel is a little cheap. Something about how I'm not proud of it, or no, what do I say? It's something like, I'm a Jew from Kentucky, which I wouldn't recommend, or something. And that line I feel like is a little cheap when I say it, just because it's not true. But then I do the joke about the Holocaust, like why did they come there, and that I like a lot.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think later in the album, I talk more about like, no one in Kentucky was there anti-Semitism in Kentucky. No one in Kentucky was cultured enough. No one in Kentucky knew enough about Jews to be anti-Semitic, which is true, on some level. So yeah. So it's that balance where you want to talk about specifics in your life, but you also don't want to like be too much like a scum. I'm a Jew from Kentucky. You gotta fight. You don't want to make it too reductive. You know what I mean? At
least it's your reality, though. So I think you can take solace knowing that. Well, this is my situation. I'm
actually not from Kentucky. I was lying.
Oh, you aren't?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, I was like, what?
I'm not even Jewish.
I'm not even Jewish. But yeah, I get what you're saying. No, yeah, of course. You always get. I think for me, I always, you're always afraid of being a hack. So it did take me a long time to like talk about where I'm from and talk about my mom and talk about, my family. I always, for some reason in my head, I'm always like, let's hack. I should just be like, I guess maybe the comics I looked up to never did that as much, but like eventually, like learning how to do that shit is what makes you more, relatable, and people feel like they know you. I
think you're just, you definitely have a good grasp of like just monitoring yourself. Cause I think, even though those are your realities and you're perfectly entitled to doing it, you feeling like it's a little bit hack is like just your own way of knowing what good comedy is, where you get sick of doing it, I think, probably because you've done it for so long and it makes you a little bit self-conscious about it. But and also with the embellishing thing, where you embellish about like it's not really that bad. But you also kind of have to make comedy a little. Out of it.
But that's why I like how I go into a Holocaust joke right away, because I'm like, I'm a Jew from Kentucky. People are like, how did your family end up in Kentucky? And I was like, well, when they left the Holocaust, they weren't very picky. You know what I mean? That I'm like, well, I'll do a Jew from Kentucky joke right there. But the fact that it's a Holocaust joke at least makes it not as cutesy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always, I think every comic's worried about being a hack, all the good ones and the bad ones. We're all worried about being hacks. But like, so, you always have to be aware of that. And I do see a lot of people who use identity politics to create some kind of bullshit 5-minute sitcom stand-up shit, and I hate that, you know what I mean, because it's not real. So you want to avoid that. Just someone on stage going, I'm a lesbian, librarian, and my parents are metrosexual cats, and and you're just like naming shit, and like you want to talk about, I don't know, things that aren't just like, you don't want to just be checking off a list,
Right. Yeah, I feel it.
Right. You got to dive into the why behind it. I feel like it's good to have that constant fear of being hacked too, because that also pushes you away from it. You have to have those boundaries. And when you start feeling that way, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna get away from there. I'm gonna move over here a little bit. And then when it feels like too either inauthentic or like too far, then you can kind of position yourself.
So I did realize the structure of late night, and I think I'm a late night set, and I kind of realized it cynically, and then I kind of played those parts but tried to be funny with it, which is the structure of every late night set is you say where you're from, you have a joke about your name, you have stuff about your parents and your family, and then you have not claptery, but some joke about making fun of prejudice or racism. And if you have all those, that's kind of
that's it. Unless you're Gary Goldman, and then you can get away with talking about abbreviating states.
Right, exactly. But so which I did. If you see my late night, I do check off all those boxes. But I also think there's the importance of a Trojan horse concept in all art and commerce, which is that like sometimes what the industry is looking for is something shitty, but if you follow those beats while creating something good, you can kind of get in. You know what I mean? Like The Wire is like a Trojan horse because it's what everyone loves. A detective, just a catching the bad guy, cop drama. You know what I mean? But it's also this brilliant, take on drug laws and society, but he wouldn't have been able to get all that shit out without the Trojan horse of this fun cop drama. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the Trojan horse is a necessary thing.
I mean, it like most screenplays, they fit into, I mean, you have to follow a formula. That's one of the first things I learned when I decided I wanted to get into comedy is I learned how to write a screenplay, and it was like, oh, wow. And then now when I watch a screenplay, it's like, oh, it's this trope. This is what's going to happen next. Like, here's the part.
Oh
where
yeah. Those are heavily
the
highly marketable screenplays are all very, very to a T with few exceptions.
And then the good ones somehow manage to like Trojan horse it, where they like they do all the things like dumb people in the industry are looking for, but they slip in a lot of good shit too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Talking about where you're from and those unique experiences, those kind of marketable things are like, important,
Right.
And it's also just important like for people to remember you,
Oh, for sure. The last track on your album too. You kind of combine all of those things, those late night things. You talk about your mom. You talk about like not necessarily racial insensitivity but you give a clear perspective of like everyone's a Jew in your Bible. Actually, let's play it. So
Okay.
Steve actually knows what we're talking about, and then we'll we'll talk about it and wrap it up.
Yeah, sure.
So Jeremy, start with the first, or I don't remember how I had it. The shorter clip between the two of Raanan's.
Jew from KY.
What's the other one?
There's Jew from KY Part 2.
Yeah, I think that's very
classic. I'm glad I labeled it clearly. I was like, I'm gonna know.
No, that's my track titles.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, it's Jew from Kentucky Part 2 is the closer.
There's Loud Jewy Mom.
Well, no,
yeah.
Jew from Kentucky Part 2 is the. Are you looking for my closer? That's the closer.
Start with Loud Jewy Mom because you have that callback at the end of
Oh, right.
Otherwise, there's no context. It's such a good callback. Like I listened to it today and I laughed after listening to it like 3 times.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I recently visited her. I visited my mom. My mom is originally from New York. She's very shrill and loud. Yeah. And when I was visiting her, I just hear her yell from outside one day. Oh my God, Raanan! Come outside! There are 4 deer outside! 4 of them! It's incredible! Raanan, come outside! There are 4 deer! 2 parents and 2 babies! It's amazing! Raanan, come outside! And then I came outside, and would you believe they were gone? Yeah. Something must have startled them.
Exaggeration obviously played a big role in that bit, right? I mean, you embellished the story, or is that really?
Yeah, a little. I mean, she was just yelled at like once or twice, and also the deer were actually still there at the end because deer are actually startled by loud sounds, and when they're startled, they don't move.
Yeah,
right.
So, but yeah, I exaggerated that part, but my mom is extremely loud, as I am. That part is true. Glad people have evidence of me being funny now.
Yeah, no, it's there. That's what we do on this show. We prove it. We prove you can laugh at that.
Whenever I'd be in the mall with my mom in Kentucky, sometimes people would say Merry Christmas, and my mom would be like, actually, we're Jewish, and we don't celebrate Christmas. And I'd be like, Mom, what are you doing? Who gives a shit? I'd be much more concerned if someone came up to me, looked at me, and went, Happy Hanukkah. I'd be like, how do you know? How do you know? Are the Gestapo back? How do you know? I'd follow them into the parking lot. What gave it away? What about me seems Jewy to you? What gave it away? What gave it away? How did you know I am so Jewish? So when people say Merry Christmas, I was never rude. I was just like, actually, I'm a Jew. I don't celebrate Christmas. I celebrate Good Friday, the day we killed your Lord. Every time I told people in Kentucky I was a Jew, this is what they said. They go, which one's that again? Is that the one where you don't celebrate birthdays? Or the ones where you churn butter? Or the ones where Tom Cruise is your savior? And I tell them, I'd say, it's the one your God was raised as. How the fuck do you not know anything about Jews? They're all Jews in the Bible, every one of them. It's a Chinese restaurant on Christmas. It's filled with Jews. How the fuck do you not know? If everyone in my Bible was Amish, I know something about the fucking Amish. They're all Jews. And people forget that shit. They're like, they're Jews, but they're not Jewish. Yes, they fucking are. God was a Jew from the get-go. First line of the Bible. What's the first line? In the beginning, God said, let there be light, and it was good. Not great, just good. That's some Larry David shit right away. Just God going, that was good. Could have been better if I had a little more time. But for 6 days, it's okay. It's not great. If I had 2 weeks, it would have been incredible. But for what it is, it's okay. They're all fucking Jewish, every one of them. Jesus, I know he looks all fucking Anglo-Saxon and stoic and shit, but he was a short Bernie Sanders rabbi Jew. He was on the Sermon on the Mount. All I have to say is turn the other cheek. Is that so hot? His mother was a Jew. I know she looks all fucking, waspy and quiet, but she was a fat, big bosomy Jewish mother. A worried Jewish mother. She was probably at the cross, freaking out. Jesus, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? You're gonna catch a cold up there. It's not too late. You can still become a lawyer. Jesus, oh my God! There are 4 deer outside! 4 on there! It's incredible!
Good shit, man. That's a great bit.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. I actually, a little behind the scenes, that actually wasn't what I closed on when I recorded my album. So I actually had to edit it because that was kind of like maybe like I had like other shit, right? I had like maybe like actually like 20 minutes after that.
Oh, really?
And I was going to close on I don't know if you've listened to the whole album, but I was going to close on like the Finding Nemo bit because I usually closed on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had realized that callback that day, like right before, whenever I'm recording something, I always have a callback comes to me like that. And I realized I could bring the deer thing back that day I was recording. And when I did it, got like an applause break. And I was like, oh shit, I should use that as a closer,
Yeah, that's the end. And that's also one of those things. I was listening to the album and the second you did that joke, even though knowing it was the last track, I was like, oh, this is the end. This is
it's like sometimes the audience ends it for you.
Yeah.
Granted, I then went on to live do a lot more material, but yeah. And watch it again. There's, you obviously see a lot of faults in it. One of the things I realized later, which really sucked, is that the Larry David thing, when I go, it was good. That part was like, God's a Jew from the beginning. What's the first line of the Bible? In the beginning, God said, let there be light, and it was good. And then I go, not great, just good, right?
Mm.
That gets an okay laugh. But after I recorded that, I started realizing that if I just don't say not great, it gets a giant laugh because it lets the audience come there. I'd say it like this. I'd just be like, God's a Jew from the beginning. What's the first line of the Bible? In the beginning, God said, let there be light. And it was good. And then I just take a pause and I just go, not great. And let them imagine like the good part. And that would just get a giant laugh. But I step over it when I go, not great, just good. I step over it when I do that. And that became so it's a little annoying now when you have an album, you're like, oh, that got such a big pop later on,
Yeah.
Everything in hindsight.
That's why I never do your material after you record it, because you'll just fucking realize it's better.
Right, yeah.
That's great advice.
And that Bernie part sucks. I do a terrible Bernie impression. But other than that, I'm happy with most of it.
Yeah, I didn't take it as you trying to do a Bernie impression.
It's because I failed at it.
I think you said like Bernie Sanders. So I thought, so I just imagined like you were, because I'm terrible at impressions too. So I'll do like a insert celebrity here, and then I won't even.
Right. Well, it was also
play it off. It's fine.
I'll play it off. Yeah. But other than that, it's fun. I hadn't listened to that in a while.
Yeah, it's. I mean, so you take us through a couple different things. Like you say, you're Jew in Kentucky. You don't really describe what it was like, but you explain it through the Merry Christmas in the Mall bit. I think that kind of sums it up. And then just the not miscommunication, but the misunderstanding of Jewish people. Like, oh, is that the one, the Tom Cruise one? Is that the
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people in Louisville who did not have a concept of what Jews are, and I think that's true a lot of places in America. I think like a lot of people aren't anti-Semitic only because they don't really know what Jews are. And I remember, I actually think that Which One's That Again?
Yeah.
It's so hard to remember because once you do a joke for a while, you forget how it got started. But I think that was a real response someone said when I once worked at Frisch's Big Boy. And I feel like I told some girl in there that I was Jewish, and she was like, "Which one's that again?" And it was extra insulting because she had a cross on. So it's like, you fucking took our religion. You should know which one it is.
Yeah.
But so I think, so you did have that experience. I will say, only in New York can I say that line about Good Friday and get an applause break. You know what I mean? That doesn't work anywhere else.
To me, is that it's harmless because you've established yourself throughout the rest of the album as who you are. Like, and then.
But
that was actually one of my
touchy.
jokes.
Yeah, people still get touchy about that. I mean, it works in New York where everyone's like hates Christians and think it's funny to make fun of them. But like, in other places, people treat, for people in New York, that joke is punching up.
Mm-hmm.
But Christians obviously in other places think that joke is punching down.
Mm-hmm.
And they're incorrect because it's making fun of Jews. But and then Jews might not like. My mom hates that joke because she thinks it perpetuates the anti-Semitic belief that Jews killed Jesus, which we didn't. We just put a hit on him. We're too cowardly to do it ourselves. But
right, smart about it.
Yeah, but
the Italians did it.
Exactly.
But isn't it? It's silly to me too. The Italians did it, of course. I think it's silly to me that your guy, like, that was supposed to happen to your guy, and it happened. Why are we demonizing the people that did it? Why are we like, oh, this is our thing? This is
Did you need us to betray him? Yeah, exactly.
It should have been just like, oh, thank you. You were the ones that did it. Cool. All right. Like, no plot twist. It wasn't Peter. Like,
the funny thing, I mean, to really look at Christianity in a way, like what is actually kind of funny about it is that like clearly him dying was not the plan. Like clearly, like when you say you're a God and you're a Messiah, you then immediately getting killed. It's kind of like it hurts the whole idea. So the whole biblical story is them dealing with things not turning out the way they wanted it. And they go, oh yeah, he died. I know that makes it look like he wasn't God, but actually that was a test for him to come back. So it's like you took what you weren't planning on happening and try to make it, spin it into the Bible is a whole, basically the New Testament is a giant PR spin on someone saying they're God and immediately getting killed, proving they're not.
Yeah.
And that's a whole spin based on that. So I guess there is a little, maybe that might explain some of the insecurities with when you make fun of, why people are still mad that Jesus got killed.
That's a good point. It is a PR spin.
Yeah.
But in the sequel, season 2, he comes back, and this is how that goes.
Yes, he comes back, and it was the plan. But that clearly, like,
I don't have a clip queued up for that, David.
Yeah. Next episode. Actually, we are talking about the Bible with Jeffrey Asmus. In a few weeks.
I'm like already strapping in for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
He used to be my roommate.
Really?
Yeah, we're good friends. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good people.
Yeah,
he's so funny.
Oh yeah, he's great.
But
let's talk about the Bible.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's going to be an entire day. It's going to be like this is going to be a 6-part episode. And then you personify God as a stereotypical Jew. I mean, you use Larry David as the kind of framework for it, which I think is very helpful for people outside of New York who don't have that experience.
I think that was advice. I think maybe from Kathleen Madigan. I think there was advice to like, don't just say it was good, but like connect it to someone they know. You know what I mean? I think I was really just going, it was good, and people didn't understand. Like they didn't get the rhythm was enough. So then I used like Larry David, and that like was a way to have people that was like feedback. I think she gave it to me. Yeah.
And that goes back to connecting with the audience. Like,
yeah,
you got to know where they're coming from. You got to meet them where they are with your material.
Yeah, you might not know Jewy rhythm, but you know Larry David. Oh, that's Jewy rhythm. And if you don't know Larry David, there's nothing I can do for you.
Again, Bernie Sanders and then Fat Jewish Mother. You've spent minutes earlier, you have an entire, like, right in the middle of your album about your mom. So it sets them up for that character to come back.
Yeah. Callbacks. I like callbacks. I think, if you can do them in a way that's not forced, that it's like, real funny, it's a good way to like close something and end it. You know what I mean? It's a good way to take it to another level. Yeah, I really enjoy callbacks. I don't know. Some people think they're cheap. I like them, and I think I'm pretty good at them, so I tend to use them a lot. I like, I started out wanting to be a screenwriter, so for me, I like the cohesiveness of stuff and trying to wrap it together. However,
done right. What got you into comedy? What made you make that switch?
I think I was struggling writing screenplays, and I think I always wanted to do comedy, but I thought I was better than comedy. I thought that was like slumming it. I think I somehow thought I was better than I want to be like a famous novelist or screenwriter, and I somehow thought I was better than stand-up. But I also thought if I ever do stand-up, I would just get pretty good. I'd never get great. You know what I mean? Like, so somehow I was both arrogant and really negative about it, which I guess is true for a lot of things. And then I started doing it when I was in Louisville, and I did at mics. And I think the instant gratification is what appealed to me. I would write a screenplay for 6 months and have 6 people read it. I'd think of some joke about my taint that day, and more people would hear that joke about my taint than anyone who read my pretty good screenplay. So the instant gratification definitely appealed to me. There's a short-term, thing with that. You get to get validated very quickly.
How soon after you started did you move to New York?
Not a long. I overstayed I was in Louisville for like 8 years. So on the road some, but in Louisville, it took me 8 years to finally muster up the courage to go to New York. And with the finances, yeah. I think, I don't know what's happening now. Sometimes people ask me, like, I was doing a Zoom thing, and like a 13-year-old was like, do you have any advice for going into comedy? I'm like, you should be preparing how to use a machete right now. Like, I don't, like, the apocalypse is definitely going to be for you. Like, what the fuck? Like, but like, I don't know what it is now, but I definitely think it's good to start somewhere else. And, I think 4 to 5 years is a good number, but, I stayed an extra 3 cause I was on drugs and broke and shit. But like, yeah. And now I've been in New York for, I think 4 or 5 years.
Any closing advice for somebody who who's working on a bit about being Jewish, or let's just stick with that topic.
About advice about a joke about being Jewish or something?
Yeah. Like what's one way, to avoid the trappings?
I guess going back to that balance thing, I'd like to think my material, listening to it again, I think for the most part, it does hit a pretty good balance between kind of mainstream accessible with a little bit of edge on it, So it kind of like a little, because it is kind of broad Jewish jokes that everyone can get, but there's some edginess, with the Holocaust and the Good Friday jokes. So like having a balance between the edgy and the mainstream is good. So I guess when you're doing Jewish jokes, like try to find that balance where you're not too stereotypical to the point where they're laughing at, their perception of Jews. Make them see a different perception, but don't make it so extreme that they don't know what you're talking about. Find that balance between relatability and uniqueness, which is, I guess, the advice for any joke.
That's anybody can take that for sure. So Raanan, where can we find you? Social media and
when does this come out?
Oh boy,
12 years from now.
Yeah, like 3-4 weeks.
You can find me at Instagram, Raanan Comedy, RAANAN Comedy. I post a lot of videos there. I got a YouTube series with Joe List where we talk shit about movies, basically just me shitting on his childhood movies called Joe and Raanan Talk Movies. That's like every week. You can subscribe on Joe List's YouTube page to get like alerts. And yeah, at Raanan Comedy, Raanan Comedy on Instagram.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us on You Can't Laugh at That.
Of course, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Steve, anything you want to throw in?
No. The towel?
Yeah. This is. I don't think you've ever thrown anything in at the end when I ask you that. So I think this is a good running.
No, we really do
just
kind
ask
of.
you, and you say nope.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Trust me.
Oh, I know. I have fun with it. Cool. Well, thanks for helping us prove that no matter if there's a trigger warning, no matter if things are off balance, too extreme, one way or the other, there's always a way to laugh at that.
You wrapped it up, baby.
You can't laugh at that.
Special thanks to Golden Ox Studio. You can find Golden Ox Studio for all your podcasting needs at goldenoxstudio.com. Hit up Jeremy. He is fantastic to work with, a professional. He makes podcasting easy. And if you've been kicking the tires on starting your own podcast, definitely give Golden Ox Studio a look. If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, follow us on Twitter at YouCan'tLaughPod, or like us on Facebook at You Can't Laugh at That, and tell us how you did laugh at today's topic or how you didn't. This is all about the conversation, is what I'm saying. All right. Bye.